With a grunt, Domitan rose from his kneeling position and back to his full height. Somewhat optimistically, the hammer of Sigmar tried to tell himself that it was just old bones that rendered it difficult, and not the manner in which the root hall's floor adopted a spongy consistency and tried almost to suck him in like some porous mass. "I have something," he said, as he looked at his fellow immortals. Leona paced as she always did, caged lightning in human form, the corposant that perpetually wreathed the trio sparkling along her arms. Sarpon was still, but his eyes betrayed an eagerness for violence. He remained an evocator sword mage at heart. "The tunnel cracks wide less than a day's travel away," Domitan went on, ignoring the vile fluid that dripped from the ceiling and sizzled over his tabard. "The relic will—" He sensed the wave of bale flame racing along the oaken corridor in the same moment as the others. With eyes aglow, the Stormcast traced the wards of Kazan in the air, binding the fulminating energies around them into a crackling barrier. The fires burst, clinging to the walls like possessive children on their mother's sleeve. Shapes bobbed and cartwheeled through the weird witchlight, and to the trilling of demon tongues, madness unspooled and reknitted into new abominations. Behind them floated a spine-thin figure of many arms, each precise motion of their stave through the air sending reality roiling like flesh. "This first, then," Domitan grunted. "Try not to look so pleased, Sarpon." Gur does not belong to their gods and their worshippers. It never did. The realm recoils at their inventions and their struggles. It seethes at the squabbles that blight the lands, rages at claims to ownership made by prey who would style themselves as predators. What does Gur care for the high ideals of civilization, or the self-defeating madness of change for change's sake? Instead, the realm does as it has always done. It feeds. Everything in Gur hungers, and the Gnarlwood, that cursed forest, a place of bloody infamy and dark renown, is no different. Much is made of the beasts that stalk its shadow deeps above ground and the predatory Gnarloaks that hungers for warm flesh, but there are other dangers, better hidden, just as deadly. Beneath the Gnarlwood's forest floor lies a warren of caverns and tunnels, hollowed out by the roots of the insatiable trees. The detritus of 1,000 wars has found its way into this subterra, though to venture here and attempt to reclaim them is a test beyond most warriors. The Gnarlwood gives up nothing easily, especially if that prize languishes within its bowels. But what if one was to go further? What lies deeper than the depths? Where does the true nature of the forest become apparent, and the ever-hungering roots find their terminus? In this place, far from wandering eyes, wood becomes flesh, and flesh becomes wood. The guts of the forest betray its nightmarish animal soul. Myth knows it as the WYRDHOLLOW, and its arcane hunger can be felt constantly trembling beneath one's feet like the growls of a bloodthirsty behemoth. The WYRDHOLLOW is undiscerning in its voraciousness. There is no telling of the sheer variety of detritus that has been swallowed into its gullet over the centuries. Living warriors, of course, but also the cost of relics of slain civilizations, and more recently, the works of entities lost beyond the veil of space and time. These treasures bear within them the power to shape realms and reorder reality, if handled with caution. Now they lie abandoned within the root holes of the WYRDHOLLOW, its questing and magic-hungry tendrils threatening to prise them open and release the raw, world-shifting power that lies within. Some will come to try and contain this power, fearing the havoc it may wreak across the realm of beasts. Others will seek to exploit it and usher in a new era of world-warping anarchy. Gur cares not. To the soul of the beast realm, all are prey. A shadow upon western Thondia, the Gnarlwood is infamous as a place of savagery and violent death. Each day, warbands of roving killers clash beneath the shadows of the gnarl-oak predator trees. Yet there is no peace to be found under the forest floor either, and the deeper one goes, the more dangerous matters become. The existence of a cavern network beneath the Gnarlwood has long been suspected. Perhaps thankfully, however, this knowledge is not widespread. If the Gnarlwood, a vast forest long possessed of a feral wrath and hunger for flesh, is already formidable enough, how much more terror would it inspire if this further subterranean hell was discovered? When warbands chance upon this labyrinth, referred to by many as the root holes, it is often unintentional. Those who attempt to use these passages to circumvent their enemies inevitably meet with fell ends, lost forever in the tangled depths. The root holes were hollowed out by the Gnarlwood, specifically the questing roots of elder gnarl oaks. Gnarl oaks are known for their predatory nature, and when a night falls, they tear free of the loam, creeping up to sleeping warriors and shoveling them into gnashing wooden moors. Like everything in the predatory realm of Gur, the gnarl oaks are in constant competition with one another, and few survive long enough to reach an advanced age. Those that do feast upon flesh and blood until they become too bloated to move. Anchored by their own greed, unable to stalk prey as they once did, they instead spare their limbs deep below the surface. In their hunt for sustenance, they rip open passages and cave-like structures like avaricious miners, eager to locate and feast upon the tar-like ichor of Gur itself. To wander here is to feel the gnarlwood pressing down on you constantly. Gore-flecked mud spatters from the ceiling in concert with the tremors that shake the forest. Roots the width of an ogre's torso snake throughout the tunnels or span plunging drops. Pools of primordial ooze seep from cracks in the floor, vile watering holes for pallid parasite beasts. The air is stifling and claustrophobic. Darkness reigns in every nook and cranny not lit by the glow of phosphorescent algae or pulsing arcane witchlights that drift upon the air like shimmering jellyfish beneath the waves. All this remains within the bounds of sanity, but as one descends deeper into the forest's intestines, nature gives way to the surreal. The stifling air grows closer and damper. The passageways tightened and knotted roots coil around, forming unpredictable layouts that warriors must hack a path through. The rhythmic throbbing of the walls and pervasive stench of digesting meat adds to the sense of being trapped in some monster's guts. In places, the root holes assume an uncomfortable spongy quality, protruding with twitching, half-macerated bodies, creatures swallowed by the forest. Occasionally, the walls split entirely, revealing mounds of pulsating flesh, slick with unpalatable fluids and resembling an oversized organ-like blending of flora and fauna. In some places, the entwining of the roots and subterranean hollows formed by their burrowing creates chambers of surprising complexity, reminiscent of a carnivorous plant's innards. Each step sees the ground squelch discomfitingly. Hish's light cannot reach these places, and illumination stems from glowing tonsil-like growths that sprout from the walls of eerie, flitting witchlights, occasionally bringing into relief the hideous segmented horrors that can be heard scuttling across the walls or feel skittering over your feet. Pools of digestive acid abound, filled with deliquescing corpses and slick tentacles that drag the incautious to their doom. From all around echoes a perturbing hiss like blood, or whatever gruesome form of sap passes for it, rushing through the engorged roots. The most unnatural sights comes when one passes from these acid-slick ventricles and into an immense sloping abyss known as the WYRDHOLLOW, said to be one of the legendary entrances to the throat of Gur itself. Here magical energy accumulates in huge amber-hued clouds that fill the chasm with eerie illumination. More than one exhausted warband has stumbled deliriously towards these sources of light, only to be overwhelmed by raw bestial power. Spanning the realm's gullets are great tangles of roots that warriors must navigate along. These roots are driven into flesh-like walls in the manner of a blood wasp's proboscis, suckling the arcane energy of the very realm. Some are broad enough that one could potentially establish an entire township upon them, assuming the tendrils did not writhe free on occasion to batter and constrict one another in slow, irrepressible combat. These titanic conflicts see the roots coil around one another again and again, forming contorted masses riddled with temporary caverns that pulsate like the esophagus of some ancient leviathan, or else shift to an almost vertical angle and plunge anything within down into endless darkness. Periodically, shapes hurtle down into the WYRDHOLLOW treasures from the surface are swallowed by the forest. The gnarlwood's roots finally become snagged in tightly tangled roots. These artifacts, many of unique provenance, for the gnarlwood has swallowed much over the millennia, are laden with esoteric power, but even if an explorer can reach them, there is little chance of escape. On occasion, Gur's throat retches up gouts of unsaturated amber magic from the realm's agitated soul. Within the WYRDHOLLOW, this arcane energy coagulates, its chambers filling with flits of primal sorcery. Exposure sees one overcome by feral mutation, undone by concentrated animalistic power. Long has the dreaded gnarlwood lurked within the Gurish heartlands. At its heart, however, can be found an astounding prize, Telaxis, the ravening ruin. Few know the origins of this vast and mysterious structure, but the legend of the unimaginable cosmic treasures that are said to languish within have already traveled far and ignited the fires of avarice in many hearts. Warbands now flock to the gnarlwood in search of the ruin, and the hunt has already claimed many souls. But within the root holes that lie deep below the forest floor, a potential disaster is brewing. In the years before the Sigmar's folk embarked upon their Dawnbringer crusades, a burning light split the Gurish skies. It fell in a blazing arc, finally impacting in the heart of the gnarlwood. In the following months, tales began to reach the cities of the God King. Tales first propagated by the explorer Anorio Ventalax, one of the few mortals to have entered the gnarlwood and returned alive. More than that, Ventalax emerged bearing artifacts that outstripped any form of craftsmanship found in Gur. Golden items of techno-arcane provenance and serpent-headed idols whose eyes were inlaid with glittering cosmic jewels. Most astounding of all were the explorers' claim that these riches represented the least treasures of the forest, taken from cigarettes scattered and the rim of the crash site. At the forest's heart lay the bulk of the ruins, a place replete with magical treasures. In typically self-aggrandizing fashion, Anorio had dubbed this place Talaxis. Talaxis's many mysteries have proved a siren song to countless warbands. Human treasure hunters and ruinous iconoclasts, green-skinned marauders, and undead royalty. All these and more make war within the Gnarlwood. Many seek to reach the so-called Ravening Ruin and plunder the riches within. The wise, however, look at the forest itself with disquiet. It is undeniable that the Gnarlwood has become more aggressive of late. The Gnarlogs grow larger, hunting further afield than ever, while their roots swell with power as they crash through the subterra, as warbands attempt to cut through or burn the forest, only to see it regrow with shocking haste. The root halls are torn wider by the stoked hunger of the Gnarlogs. In doing so, the very bedrock of the Gnarlwood is weakened until, if this trend continues, the forest itself may begin to collapse in places, consumed by its own wild instincts. Gur is infamous for the constant tectonic battles it wages against itself. The geographical features of the realm are no less aggressive than its native beasts and are constantly attempting to overpower their rivals. Continental plates wage grinding conflicts that can last decades. Rapids filled with jagged rocks carve open new waterways throughout the lands, and the roots of living mountains clash until the colossal peak topples. For all the Gnarlwood's predatory ferocity, respected even by many of Gur's natural denizens, it too would no doubt be overwhelmed one day, split open by the colossal tremors that rock Thondia, or drowned by the sheets of siling rainwater that slip into cracks in the forest floor and slowly weaken the soil. This, however, assumes a natural fate befalling the forest, even taking into account Gur's wild extremes. Little is natural about the trials facing the Gnarlwood. As the struggle for the Ravening Ruins intensifies, some warbands look to the root halls as a means of bypassing those dangers found above ground. Just as vital, however, is to prevent one's rivals from using these passages to their advantage. Cruel boy Oryx, pestilential Skaven, and the worshippers of Grandfather Nurgle flood the caverns with arcane filth, while the Caradron are not above deploying defoliating gases to clear stubborn root knots. The high-minded Lumineth summons runes of purification and arcane bindings to try and calm the forest's seething underbelly, though in truth it often serves to agitate the Gnarlwood more. The forces of death and chaos corrupt the places with their mere presence, to say nothing of when they decide to actively wound the root halls with their dark energies. Perhaps the greatest danger stems from Gur itself. As the era of the beast, the current time of primal instability that assails the cosmos, rages on, the Amber Realm appears to become increasingly voracious. The gullet beneath the forest, said by tribal shamans to be one of many secreted in the depths of Gur, tries to swallow anything it can. Even a realm can only feast on so much at once, and in between those times, when the root halls ripple as if swallowing anything caught within them, treasures pried loose from the deep earth are briefly uncovered. Having been buried beneath layers upon layers of forest floor for centuries, many of these treasures are relics of the most ancient Gurish peoples, the Half-Moon clans of the Thondian lowlands, the storm-worshipping Rakan-Roki, the vampiric Askurga Renkai, even the ancient Draconith and Drogrok empires. The old primal magics of their creators still cling to these artifacts, and warbands will brave the most harrowing dangers of the root halls for a chance to claim them. Alongside these Gurish treasures are relics of more celestial provenance. In certain places, oaken tendrils have instinctively enveloped strange cosmic engines of stone and gold, drawn like blind and starving animals to the energies they sense thrumming within them. This fascination seems to extend to the warbands who brave the root halls, many of whom cannot help but converge upon these artifacts where they become lodged in the pseudo-organic flesh of the root halls. This is invariably the last mistake they ever make. For these devices, treasures of celestial Talaxis, may yet see the Gnarlwood entirely unravel. The deepest recesses of the Nullwood tremble with nigh on unbound arcane potential. Relics and engines of world-shaping artifice have been swallowed in the depths by the devouring forests. When these magics blend with the pure feral energies of Gur, disaster may well beckon. To understand the threat facing the Nullwood, one must understand the true nature of Talaxis. Honorio Ventalax fancifully described it as a golden city of the stars, yet he was far closer to the truth than he perhaps realized. The truth is that Talaxis is in fact the remnant of the Eye of Sotek, one of the magnificent techno-arcane vessels of the Seraphon. These void-faring craft, fashioned aeons ago by the Seraphon's enigmatic gods, the Old Ones, defy mortal comprehension. Even the disciples of Grugni the Maker would be astounded to glimpse the innards of these vessels and study the magical masterworks contained therein. Though these vessels typically reside among the etheric void, this does not render them immune to attack. The Eye of Sotek is proof of this. Ransacked by Tzeentch's demons, the ship plummeted to the realm of Gur. As it fell, cigarettes and idols ripped from its flanks and slammed into the forest. Many of these minor temples, storehouses for the Old One's godly technology, became tangled within the Nullwood and soon cemented as sites of fierce confrontation. Some, however, burst through weakened patches of earth and hurtled into the root halls below. Most potent of these relics were the Realm Shaper engines. These pyramidal constructs were critical to the great plan of the Seraphon, which required the lands to be transformed to fit the vision for reality held by the Seraphon. The Realm Shapers draw upon the energies of the ley lines, the geomantic patterns of magic that binds reality, and use them to remake the resounding environment. Sweltering forests amenable to reptilian life springs up. Seas grow and retract, and formerly barren expanses are filled with the substance of creation. The Realm Shaper engines were created by the Old Ones, and even their Seraphon servants have only the most rudimentary ideas of how to operate them. Moreover, the devices draw heavily upon the energies of the realm in which they land, and when damaged, this power is capable of spilling widely out of control. All of this proved true for those realm shapers that smashed down the furthest through the root halls, ending their descent within the shuddering intestines of the WYRDHOLLOW. The fall itself cracked stone exteriors and crystal mattresses, releasing cosmic energies to billow through the Nullwood's magic-wreathed guts. Elsewhere, the roots that formed these knotted passages attempted to pierce through the damaged devices, in doing so penetrating the now rolling maelstroms of power within them. This energy soon seeped into these tendrils, and in the process filled the WYRDHOLLOW. Saturated with untrammeled realm-shaping magics, its root halls began to trash and seethe, collapsing and growing seemingly at random in places as the terraforming energies seized them. Soon, swaths of the WYRDHOLLOW were inundated with the creation magics, and even traveling in its upper root halls could see one's flesh writhe with the urge to mutate. The exposed organs of the Gnarlogs absorbed this power as greedily as they did everything else, sprouting so many tendrils that they began to collapse beneath their own weight. But worst was when the gullet of Gur belched waves of primal magics into the guts of the Nullwood. Here they blended with the released magics of the Realm Shapers and settled as drifting clouds of raw, volatile potential, spreading a curse of devolution and transfiguration throughout the forest's underbelly that tears down the natural divide between flora and fauna. On occasion, the WYRDHOLLOW spasms as waves of amber magic rush up from the depths and through its innards. It is as if Gur wheezes, trying to shift something lodged in its throat. Perhaps a handful of Realm Shaper engines tumbled all the way into this maw, stone cilia unable to entirely grind them apart. Two potential ends await in this scenario, neither of them palatable. The first is that Gur, or at least this region of the realm, may choke itself and begin to wither. Yet even more disturbing is the notion that Gur's maw may eventually break down the devices throttling it, consuming their power before belching it up in a wave of raw energy. If this were to happen, if the world-shifting powers of the Old Ones mixed with the purest expression of Gur's animal nature, the root halls would become a seething cauldron of relentless bestial change, and the rest of the forest would soon follow.
The alchemy of anarchy commences. The WYRDHOLLOW is our cauldron. The howl of the monster blended with a sickly taint of stars, our reagents. Blend them with our master's gifts we must, until 999 new forms of madness walk the realms.
This is Mats again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and to not miss out on future content, ring the bell as well. And if you really liked this video, feel free to click the thanks button just below this video. And if you want to support me even further, you can now become a channel member and claim the title of Critical Focus fan. Until next time, take care, bye.